Hello and welcome to the Game Dev Local Podcast. I'm your host, Oscar Clark, he, him pronouns, and I am on a podquest to learn everything you wanted to know about game dev, but never dared to ask. And I'm delighted to have joining me Charlie Scowen. And Charlie, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charlie Scowen. My pronouns are he, him. I am the event content coordinator for leading B2B games industry conference PGConnects.
So, I mean, obviously you and I have been talking lots and lots and lots and lots and lots over many, many years, it feels like. I've been, for those who don't know, I've been hosting the Pocket Gamer London event since it started. I've hosted more of the tracks than probably anybody else apart from Chris James. Even then, I probably think I've probably hosted more than him because he doesn't necessarily do it every time.
No.
I used to be the person who'd been to the most Pocket Gamers apart from Chris as well. But that's kind of like when they started adding exotic venues, I stopped getting the chance to attend every time, but that's life. So for me, Pocket Gamer, 12th year this year coming up in London.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, PGConnects London has been going for 12 years now, and it's actually going to be the 20th year of Pocket Gamer in general. So PocketGamer.com first launched in 2020, not 2026, 2006. And of course, it'll be 20 years later, in 2026, we'll be celebrating its 20th birthday.
And I remember when a certain young chap, a strapping young chap called Chris James, in a bar, a journalist I knew at Future Gaming, and I think John Jordan was in the bar as well, and various other people saying,
It always starts in a bar. It
always starts in a bar.
It always starts in a
We've got this idea. We're going to start up a mobile focused experience. Bear in mind that at this time, mobile gaming was Java. This is mobile mid-P Java, the worst of the Javas. We used to joke it was write once, run nowhere. And we had the situation where I think the same year, I think it was what was the name of the company? The team that did the Lara Croft mobile game. John Chasey, who was heading that team up, said to me that they had to make 3,000 different builds to make the game function. The same year, by the way, the year that I was the service I was running, the 3 mobile game platform, was the largest in terms of revenue per user in the world. Just so you know, made less money a year than Supercell make a month. Now, that's the scale we're talking about. So in this era, the SteelMedia guys decided they're going to kick off and create a mobile-centric magazine, which is still here to this day, 20 years later. Chris is still involved, as a bunch of the original founders as well. But I would argue that Pocket Game has become a quintessential part of the calendar of the games industry, not just for mobile games. And your responsibility in that nowadays is to make sure that the lineup, the speaker event, and the kind of experience has that kind of connection that has something useful for everybody, regardless of what part of the games industry they come from. What's that challenge like?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll go a little bit behind the curtain a bit as well. Like so Pod Gamer obviously been going for 20 years, and the Pod Gamer Connects London has been going for like 12 years now. Since the very first iteration of Pocket Gamer Connects, the nature of the event has evolved, which is sort of what you're speaking to, Oscar, where it's not only an event that is sort of quintessential for the mobile games industry. It has now evolved into the event for all platforms. Of course, like one of the biggest challenges that we see quite often with the name Pocket Gamer Connects is obviously we are a mobile games conference, which of course that's how we started, but that is not the case anymore. We have so many amazing people from all walks of the games industry joining us, from PC, console, Web3, XR, AR, VR, and now AI native studios that are starting up as well. And we've explored all walks of other entertainment industries as well: film, TV, music, fashion.
The whole
Um,
transmedia stuff. I
the
think
whole
you had me on
transmedia
the
side.
transmedia thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we did during lockdowns when we had to do our conferences online. God, that feels like an age ago, even, but it wasn't even that long ago when you think
No,
about it.
no, it
Um,
was relatively
you
recently.
know,
Yeah.
we did a Beyond Games summit online, where we invited people that are working across other mediums to explore the intersection of where games meets the other creatives. Um, One of the challenges of putting everything all together is you have to be clued into as much as possible. So you're always talking about the latest, like, the latest trends, the latest pain points of the industry, but also the opportunities for growth and success. Staying on top of those is certainly a challenge, but it's something that I've learned um, as I've been part of this role for a while now, um, leaning and building up a network, and learning from advisors such as yourself, Oscar, of course, people that are clued into the industry, and just making sure that you just stay on top of everything. You're always researching, like, what are the talking points of the industry that everyone needs to know about, and then of course we formulate that, and that's how we build our sort of conference structure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that I think people don't necessarily understand. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions about kind of the economics of these kind of events, and obviously, there's a combination between sponsors and volunteers and speakers and teams, things like the big indie pitch, which is a kind of major part of it. Now, I mean, obviously, a lot of the people who are listening to the Game Dev Local are going to come from the indie world. There might be some people who are kind of like really anti AI or whatever. I mean, if you are, fine. I don't think we need to sort of worry too much about. I think the point we're trying to get across here is that what Pocket Game is trying to do is present this is the state of play of the industry. These are the people currently doing interesting things. And this is the point where you get to meet the investors, the publishers, other dev teams, experts who are sharing information about what they do. And of
Absolutely.
course, curating all that is a challenge. And I mean, how do you start the process? I mean, if somebody wanted to start, do you start from the point of view where you're looking at the topics, or do you start from the point of view where you're looking at the tracks, or maybe or particular speakers you think would be interesting? How do you start that process?
It's a bit of both. I mean, like, when we have so many events that happen throughout the year, so
Yeah,
a lot of it is also region focused as well. For instance, we run an event in Dubai
yeah.
the last couple of years in May, and we're gonna have another one happening in May 2026, and part of that is also looking at the region specific stuff. So, what are the challenges and opportunities within the Middle East and North African region. Same thing with, we did Pocket Game Connects Barcelona this year for the first time, and we will be returning again in 2026. What are the opportunities within, Europe, and more specifically around the Iberian Peninsula? So a lot of topics sort of get formulated
But
around.
also, we did Korea. I mean, I'm mentioning
We did
Korea
Korea,
because
yes, we did.
you had me out there, so that was good. But it's more that this was an opportunity. It wasn't necessarily the biggest of the events, and often when we go to the new locations, they start off relatively small because people are trying to work out how it works.
Yeah,
But what I found fascinating is the quality and the range of people who come. So we had some of the biggest teams, NCSoft, whatever, Nexon attending as much as we had some of the smaller developers who wouldn't have got the chance to meet anywhere else.
exactly. Yeah, and, like, that's the very nature of what Pocket Game Mechanics is. It's bringing everyone, like, as many people as we can from a wide range of backgrounds, whether if you're from a top studio or you're an indie developer looking to start up your own studio. This is like Pocket Gamer Connects is like the place to be. It's where we get the name from. Pocket Gamer Connects, connecting the whole industry together, and you get that whole, um, you know, exactly what you said, Oscar. Like, you got indie developers there, that wouldn't necessarily meet, your NC softs, your Super Sense, your dev sisters, for example. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what is really rewarding about these events, is because though people can pass on that knowledge. They can share knowledge. They can share connections, and oh, you should meet this person, or oh, you should learn from this person or something. Oh yeah, you're working on something really cool. I would love to like follow up with you after the event or something like that. And those things make running these events really rewarding. And yeah, like going to more on the topics and planning the topic side of things. um, yeah, like we're always discussing internally like what are the most interesting things. Obviously, we're probably glued to LinkedIn a lot, because that's where a
Well,
lot
it's
of
where I live.
announcements and
Literally, it's where I live. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like glued to LinkedIn. And of course, we have our own editorial stuff, so pocketgamer.biz and pocketgamer.com. We have editorial teams that are clued into the news like every single day,
yeah.
so we're always looking at news sites like them, and
And I
other
should
places as
declare
well.
that I do sit once a week or so, not always, but quite a lot of the week. I will
Yeah,
sit
and yeah,
on the
exactly.
editorial calls on a Wednesday, and I find it fascinating. I mean, the only reason they have me there is to have some external person with an external perspective to kind of like
Yeah,
add
no, but,
comments.
but this is and this we also do this for the actual conference planning as well, because
Yeah,
like we catch up quite regularly. I
yeah,
catch up with other people quite regularly as well,
mm,
that are more clued into specific parts of the industry, or specific regions,
mm,
because they're glued into it every day. They see where the opportunities or the challenges are, where the pain points are. So we're always chatting with them, and we're always seeing what we can do, whether that's content or actually at the event, in terms of um, you know how we can support like indie developers, for instance, on connecting, and making sure that they can learn from people, whether that's with scaling their studio, or even as simple as like how do you input some a
mm,
type of mechanic into a game. Like,
yeah.
the content, the range of content is absolutely vast. And yeah, like I said, it's just like, yeah.
It is, and I think one of the things that I think is really fascinating about any event like this is the challenge of trying to make sure that you're coming away with something useful. Because at the end of the day, why do people attend? They're going to attend for 2 or 3 reasons. Thing one is I'm going to learn something that some other developer is out there who is telling me their experience, so I can learn from that. I think that's
Exactly.
massively valuable. There's also that I want to tell other people about my experience. And I want to connect with other people. So the networking side of things, and within the networking, there's connecting with my peers. I think there's also connecting with publishers and investors, and the kind of the business interest, even as a work for hire team, to be seen to be there, to be seen to connect, to find out who those people are, and even if you're not currently looking for work or connections or revenue, to be seen that you're still about. Honestly, I think that's a massively underestimated value point. But then there's the
Absolutely.
last one, which is to show something, and whether that's showing something as a speaker, as indie showing things into the indie, big indie pitch, things like that. I think all of those things are valuable. Um, how do you? I mean, I mean, that's my take on it. What do you think makes an event meaningful? If you're for the developers out there, they're going to have to think about taking time out of work. They're going to have to think about taking, the costs involved. Sometimes it might be a hotel or a travel cost, maybe even a different country to attend. What do you think is the compelling reason for them to be able to get that kind of reason to attend an event like that?
I mean, obviously it's a case by case basis, like on the event, and like what your sort of goals are for the time of the event, and for goals for the year, goals for your studio. Um, I'm going to use an example where, a lot of people are looking for funding at the moment. So
Yeah.
where do you sort of get funding? Like, who do you reach out to? Who do you like learn from when it comes to, okay, how do I speak to an investor, right? Like, how do I speak to a VC? How do I Are they like government grants that I can look at?
Yeah.
And I'm going to use that as an example purely because like one of the things that we see a lot in the games industry, especially at the moment, and I don't think this is any secret, is people need to raise money. People are trying to find
Shocker.
how shock, right? So
Shock horror. We
um,
need money.
exactly, like how do I get money? How do I do that? And so one of the unfortunately, I'm not sure how compelling it is, but it is a legitimate concern that people have. Um, and for our events, like we cover that. We cover
Yeah.
like we got loads of people coming in talking about the state of the investment and M&A market.
Yeah.
Um, and we've got a panel that people from different parts of the games industry have been setting up their studios, setting up their companies, and they are raising funds not through a through not through just a singular VC or singular investor or a couple of those. They're doing it through government grants.
Yeah.
UK like UK Games Fund, for example, or you know
Exactly.
other sort of regional funds. Yes, I'll talk to a VC who's given me a bit as well, and compiling in that. And I think it's called the
And each
Hustler's Mindset
country
or something,
is
and
that
it's like a
each country
hybrid
has their
funding.
own. Yeah, each country has their own kind of set of what these grants can look like, and then
Exactly.
opportunities. There's often trade and industry processes. I know with GDC, Yuki run a scheme where they will. I think they get some support. I don't think they get as much support as they probably should, to be honest, from government. But the idea is then you can have a presence in the environment. Same thing with Gamescom. I know we work with the Belgian, actually we got support from the Belgian government for this year's Gamescom, and we got access to a space to be able to operate there. So that I found it was really helpful and useful.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
I'd
and I
say
know a lot
like
of people who wouldn't be able to do it otherwise.
yeah. So I'd say like one of the reasons obviously that people want to like go to events like ours is how do I get funded? Like how like where are the sources of funding that I can get? What is available? How do I get that? How do I
Yeah.
talk to an investor? How do I pitch to an investor? What do investors want to see when you're pitching?
And I think this is another
Your
thing which
pitch
is a
deck essentially.
flavour. This is another thing that's a flavour difference between different events. So, for example, the Game Dev local team have their own expo. It's happening in Farnham in, I think it's February off the top of my head. I can't remember. I'm sure somebody will provide the details. But that's more focused around the indie community, indie game makers making stuff together. Um, Whereas I would argue that whilst there's a fantastic indie proportion to what's offered on PGC. And as someone who feels like I kind of like I led the indie tracks for many years. Charlie gets me to do other tracks nowadays, but I used to be
Yeah.
my baby holding running the indie track. But there's so much going on there, and I think the combination with the big indie pitch means that it's a different experience. You get to show your game off, great, but it's a different experience than going to like a GDLX. And I think if you can do both, they're definitely things that are worth achieving, worth trying. And I think there's something about London being on, in January, PGC London being in January, that starts the entire year off. And
It does, yeah. It feels like it sets the tone for like the rest of the year. Like this
yeah,
year, um, you know, we were coming out of sort of some awful stuff in 2023, 2024, obviously
yeah,
with the death of the IDFA and it felt like that's what the start of like the mass layoffs happening all over and everything,
yeah,
and it just felt like it was the industry was ideally not in a good place, and everyone was saying about survive to 25, right? That
yeah.
was
They
that was
tried using
the
Thrive in
yeah.
25,
So
but
we
that fell
tried,
away
we
very
we
quickly.
tried to
Yeah,
and no, but I think as well we actually did provide a good reason like why we were saying
mm,
hopefully now we can start thriving in 25.
yeah,
And whilst not everyone was able to get take that attitude on board, there were some people that were doing some really amazing stuff this year.
yeah,
So I would say they definitely thrived in 25, but it means it feels like we have survived and survived to 25. Now we can thrive beyond that. And one of the things with PGC London is because it's at the beginning of each year, it feels like we have a really good opportunity to sort of go into the year with optimism and excitement and get everybody buzzed about working on the really cool projects again. Everyone comes in with refreshed energy, and
Yeah.
being able to be the conference of the year where everyone's got that refreshed energy, and seeing how we can amplify that throughout the year. I just it
I like that
that's
language.
what.
Amplifying the energy, I think, is absolutely a really good way of describing. I mean, because we've just had our Christmas break, assuming you've had a break, you get to catch up. I mean, I don't know how it is for most people, but for me, I've spent so much of my life at conferences, more than most human beings should. I have a whole friendship network I only ever see at conferences, and the ability to connect with those people gives me that creative expression and that kind of sense of confidence needed to step up for the rest of the year.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's also a place where I get work done.
It
So
is, yeah. Like
I
it's
need
not,
those
yeah.
meetings.
Depending on what you get out of the event, like you got to go into the events with a mission. Like you got to go into there with a
Yeah.
game plan. It's fine. Like everyone, if someone goes in and goes like, oh, I'm there to connect with people, meet or whatever. I don't really have a necessarily mission, but like you will get a massive, massive return if you go in with a defined mission of what you want to achieve at any event, not just Pocket Gaming Next, but every single event, and because each event is entirely different as well. So I think that's one of the big things I would say is like go into the events with a mission, and obviously after the event you can do your post like event sort of rundown feedback whether you made a good ROI. But I think that going in with a mission is definitely for
Yeah.
events
I
is.
mean, for me, the way I look at the mission side is I look at each event as in terms of its significance in terms of its market,
Mhm.
the kind of people that are going to be attending, and the range of people, particularly people I wouldn't get the chance to meet otherwise.
Exactly, yeah. Like you did in Korea, right? Like
Yeah,
that was an opportunity where you get to meet a whole new like
whole new
a
audience.
whole new audience, whole new network of potential friends, potential
Yeah,
clients in the future. Like that's why I said like each event is different, right? You got to go into the events with different missions. You can't go in the same mission because each event is just so different. Like
yeah,
imagine going into GDC with the same mission of like you're going to be at like an indie event, like because like they're two completely different events, right? Like but you need to have separate missions, I'd say.
yeah. And I think there's more to it as well, which is so it's not just about the people. It's also what are my objectives. So, for example, I'm going to make a return on investment based on meetings and people, but I'm also going to include what is my opportunity to communicate at that event. So, for me, the fact that I will be a speaker, I probably won't go to events where I'm not a speaker generally. I mean, I have the luxury to have that option. Not everybody does. But on top of that, it will increase the likelihood of me attending an event if that event is being recorded. Because then I know that it's not just about the people in the room I'm talking to, it's about the other people who might find out about it.
Yeah, and whether that's through the event attendees that couldn't manage to get to the session that you were hosting, or whether it's posted on any sort of like public YouTube like channel or platform or anything like that. The
Yeah.
reach there, like I mean, speaking at events, you get such a massive opportunity to you know profile yourself and profile your
Yeah.
company, your product that you're working on.
And I think that's critical here. It's like understanding the multiple value proposition that you need. I mean, for example, if you're looking for investment, that's one. If you're looking for publishing, that's another. Some people are looking for both.
Hmm.
And these are a scorecard of how you can decide. Because I don't think everyone can do every event.
No,
Even I can't do every event.
no, no, I certainly can't. No.
Yeah, and we have the luxury where we get invited to a lot of events, so it's more possible. I'd still get event envy when I don't go to an event, though, even though I
Oh,
know I
absolutely.
can't do everything. I also get event fatigue, I think this is going into an experience like that, preparing for it. I think this is where Meet to Match is an incredibly useful tool. Obviously, not every event uses Meet to Match itself, but tools like it.
Yeah, yeah, your meeting platforms, they're definitely they're there to serve you for when you go to these events.
Yeah, and also on top of that, though, I think there's this need for people who are going to these events to realize how much they're missing out if they don't pay attention to those elements.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the crux of it. It's yeah, it's finding the right balancing act for why the thing. Yeah, balancing it between what you're trying to prepare, who you're trying to prepare for, and getting the chance to share the information about what you are. If you don't put yourself into those systems, you will not be found by people. But most people won't be searching for it, and that's okay. But there will be a lot of people searching. The risk is, and this is the problem I think a lot of people have, is that if you put yourself up, you're going to get inundated with people who you don't want to talk to, trying to talk to you.
Exactly,
And you know what I find fascinating about that is it's so easy just to say no.
yeah. It is, right? Like it is. It's people don't realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key thing is like it's understanding the that it's okay to say no. It's okay. I mean, it's actually even okay to ignore, but I prefer people to say no. People are
Yeah,
less
I
likely to
I would
bother
say
you.
like ignore like that's one thing I don't really agree with, like ignoring. I think, try and get back to as many people as possible. Obviously that depends on your your workload, your capacity to do that. I know I definitely don't get back to everyone that like requests a meeting or whatever like that because obviously volume and everything. But I try, that's something that I probably need to do better on. Absolutely, but like yeah, just a simple no. Like if rather than ignoring, I think that's a lot better than ignoring. I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, again, it's all trying to get this stuff right is always difficult. There is no one good answer.
No.
Yeah, and it's finding the right balance. So I mean, so we've talked about kind of what's involved with you trying to kind of think about planning and kind of topics and so on and so forth. We've talked a bit about the different needs that developers might have in terms of which events to attend and what to do at those events and how to sort of make the most of them. I mean, we haven't really talked about the personal kind of aspect of it. Sometimes not everybody is an extrovert,
Hmm.
and the irony in some ways is that I find it really fascinating that some of the best salespeople I've ever worked with are the introverts.
I mean, like Oscar, when I
Yeah,
first started in the industry, God, I was so introverted. I was so shy. I didn't know really how to network or talk to people at all, especially in a professional context.
yeah.
I just absolutely I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
No, and I think there's a skill that can be learnt,
Absolutely.
and also at the end of the day, it's such an important skill to be able to communicate with people.
Hmm.
But being able to choose how you do that safely and how to look after yourself while you do it, I think things like I know it sounds stupid advice, but it's actually really sensible. Like taking breaks, not being me, not doing back to back half an hour meetings. That's insane. Make sure you put gaps in,
Yeah.
times for you to be able to stop, and importantly, times for you to move from one meeting location to another.
Absolutely, as well. Like, and even just like some time to take some, like get a coffee as well, because and or like a tea or whatever you fancy drinking, just to take a bit of a moment, just breathe, check whatever you need to check, just sit down, chill out, check up on messages, whether that's personal or work related, and then as well, like, because sometimes as well, when you're just chilling, like in an area where you can find time to work or just have a coffee, some of the best like networking sort of meets happen then organically as well. So there's that aspect to consider as well. But taking some time to recharge, grab a coffee, grab whatever you need.
And take
Yeah,
notes.
take
I mean,
notes.
Actually, increasingly, I know this is probably wrong, but I want to find. I'm starting to think I need to start recording meetings. Now, don't if anyone else doesn't want to be recorded, that's fine. But my issue is more that I want to take notes, and I'm terrible at taking notes. So if I record the meeting, I could get an AI to transcribe it and remind me what actions I said I would do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not going to work for everybody,
No.
and it may not even work for me. I haven't started doing it. It's something I'm exploring doing, and it only works when it's voluntary. But knowing that would then take away the pressure I have of remembering who I met, when I met, what actions I need to take. To me, that's really interesting. Really potentially. There might be other ways of doing other techniques, but these are the kinds of things that I think some people can find useful.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think the importance there is that having a meeting is one thing, following up after the show is another. And I think there's a tension here, but it's like, what are you trying to achieve in a 20-30 minute meeting versus what the follow-up looks like? Are you trying to close a deal, or are you trying to start a deal? And deal can be any number of things. Do you have any kind of place on that where you sit?
Typically, like, I'm not too much of a BD person, I'm afraid, so I wouldn't be able to say on that.
Yeah, but you're still trying to get people to engage with the speaker events and stuff like that. You're still trying to get people to participate. You're still closing something. I mean, everybody is selling something, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah. My typical follow-ups, like, from so I just experienced this, actually. I was at another event, not one of ours. Shock, I know, it was crazy. And then there was, like,
You do
follow-ups
other events
afterwards.
too?
I what sacrilege,
No.
right?
Sacrilege, yeah.
Yeah. And events like those where you follow up afterwards, like, yeah, it depends on the very nature of what you spoke about at the event for me. Like, there were a couple of people there where I was like, hopefully I'd love to get you involved in our event, in whether that's in a speaking capacity or just general attendance or whatever. But yeah, like, obviously the follow-ups, I'd say it entirely depends on what you spoke about during the meeting, which is why it is important to take notes at the actual event as well, so you then remember, like, what was said. One of our team actually said whenever they have a meeting, whether that's at the event or they met someone at a industry mixer or something, they even go home and, like, follow up that very evening while it's fresh in the mind. Now, again, that approach doesn't work for everyone, but for the very nature of the of that sort of follow up in that meeting, I think that approach is interesting as well.
Yeah. So, I think that kind of, if you're going to take the view of you're there to do deals, I think there's some certain things that I think is worth thinking about in terms of your structure. So going in with an intent, going in with a pre-setting expectations on both sides, having a clear sense of action that comes out of those meetings, but also a sense of purpose. I think having a very clean definition of, I want to do this and this and this, and probably no more than 3 things at any point. I think that those sorts of things can be really helpful. And again, if you're trying to get funding, what is the thing you want to have? What is the action you want to be taken next is going to be really key. So if it's an investor, I want them to present me to their board, or I want them to allow me to do a pitch to their board. I mean, there'll be different things that you want to do. I mean, again, I say board, but I mean their investment committee or whatever. If it's to a team who are looking for work for hire, as in co-dev type, studio type work, then I'm going to want to be able to have the opportunity to then do a formal pitch for that work in some way, or to demonstrate the value that I can add or my team can add to solving their particular problem. But that only works if we know what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back to setting expectations.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's going to, hopefully that's useful for anyone who's listening. I think you're trying to think about how you're going to approach these things, spending some time in advance thinking about setting expectations working out what outcomes you want and the key things that you need to take with you in order to achieve some of those outcomes.
100%. Yeah, defining the mission.
Defining the mission, exactly. So, with all that in mind, I mean, let's say someone wants to. We're both doing coughing now. You know, hopefully that'll get edited out. We'll see. Maybe get kept in just so to show spice. Anyway,
Yeah.
the thing I'm thinking about next is, we've gone to this event. We've had our meetings. We had our follow ups. Whatever else. How do we judge whether that was successful for us? Do you think?
I think that's a very subjective question. I think again it is dependent on that mission of what you're there for. Say you're an indie developer who wants to, learn how certain other developers have, you know, incorporated game mechanics in a certain way, what they can learn from that. If they come away feeling like they're learning something, I think that is a way of you've measured success. Then, if you're someone who is trying to gain new clients and you've come into the event, you met some folks, you followed up, you've closed those deals or signed people on as your client. Again, you can measure the success. But if it doesn't come across like as well, like do you leave some time like afterwards, like to measure, like did you get a successful ROI on that event? Like how say you went to an event like 6 months ago and you signed a client there, you met a potential new client, but you didn't actually sign them until like 7 months later or something. Do you classify that as a success from the event itself on return on investment, or do you classify that as success of something that you've done? You've just met someone, or you've found a time to meet someone through a meeting. You've built that relationship over those 7 months. Do you classify that as successful from the event as well? So there's a few different factors there on what you can sort of define as success for coming away post event.
And I think this is actually what you're hinting at. Something that's really, I think, important is that I think what we need to do is think about your event attendance as part of a portfolio or a funnel process.
Exactly.
It's adding a different layer of experience. So the ability to sit there with a real person in face to face. I think those two things are really vital to that human connection. And one of the things that I think is essential, and again, I'm using the word selling. I don't necessarily mean literal. The connection, the engagement, whatever it is, the whatever that is, or language. But we buy from people. We don't buy products.
No, exactly that. Yeah.
And I think, having that ability to get in front and connect with people at a human level matters. I think it's important for us in our development, our progress, and our mentoring and all that other stuff too. I think all of that really helps. So if we think about the role that an event plays in association with the other activities, I'm a big fan of kind of thought leadership style processes where I'm loud, I'm annoying. I talk about a lot of things that I'm hopefully an expert in, and I try to share as much value with people as possible, because partly that's who I am, but also because I need you to think, who is the person who knows about game design, monetization, business planning, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there's that Oscar chap in the hat. He's able to talk about all this stuff around the game industry. Why don't I ask him?
Exactly.
My broad outlet of sharing process. Then when I am at an event and people seek me out, I don't have to explain who I am. You've seen the hat before, probably. It's why I wear the hat at the end of the day, so I'm very recognizable. And everyone will have their own hook or own flavor of that. But that ability to be able to say, this fits into a process flow. I have scale and scope and reach because of my broadcasting on social platforms. I have personal connection because I can stand on stage and talk to you. I can meet you in person in an event. And then we can build a relationship which can then turn into something more commercially valuable, or simply just people that we get on with. And I think it's fascinating when you think about I was thinking about PGC Helsinki, and not this year, but last year in particular, I was having a really hard time at the point, and I would normally be a networker. I'd be normally out there and go to every party and so on and so forth. But that time, I sat with particularly two or three guys, people like Tad Kelly and Harry Helmwood,
Yeah.
and it was just lovely to just
Yeah.
sit with friends and just not feel overwhelmed by things.
Hmm.
And being able to use events as an opportunity to connect with people at a human level as well as commercially, I think is a massively important factor. And, they're people I won't necessarily do any business with, but the number of times down the line where we've had some overlap or some connection or some need to introduce, all of that stuff matters. And we do it not because of any kind of weird networky thing, but because we want our friends to do well.
Hmm. Exactly.
And I think that, realizing that the games industry is actually very lucky in many cases to have a lot of very positive and pleasant people
And
in.
we are in a, well, I wouldn't say like this is unique to the games industry, but one of the great things about the games industry is how collaborative everyone is. Especially like, again, I'm going to use Finland as an example, because you just mentioned it. Like everyone there, they're so collaborative. They're not competing with each other. They're always sharing knowledge, sharing ideas, and everything. And it is a reflection of the wider games industry, I'd say as well. Like the games industry is so supportive of each other as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think, we do have, for example, if you don't identify as, cis white male, there are game industry communities there who want to support you, whatever
Absolutely.
that identity is. We do have a fantastic community of female game developers. We have a fantastic community of diverse, MB and trans and LGBTQ in general. People who are out, people who are different kind of cultural backgrounds. They exist, and if you want to find somebody who looks and feels like you feel, they do exist. No, not necessarily in the proportions we might like in every case, not always getting the support they should in every case, but there are teams out there in games, Pock and Play, Limit Break, Outmaking Games. There are communities out there who are absolutely supportive. Even what's the there's an ADHD one, but I was talking about it yesterday. Anyway,
Oh, I know who you're on about. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
playing. Anyway, I feel I'm
I
going
mean,
to get kicked.
there are so many, and like but I think as well, like for us, should definitely be platforming them more as well to show just
Yeah,
how vast the support is. But as well, like we can never, be too
we're
happy
not
with how things
perfect.
are. Always room for improvement on this.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that there are different reasons for these things. There are different values we can get out of it, and we can get multiple different values at the same time. And so, let's kind of like so I think we've talked about events and so on and so forth. Let's talk about how would somebody who wants to broaden their visibility engage with you, for example. So, what are you looking for? If somebody says, "I want to get on the speaker circuit, I want to talk about something," what are the criteria? Because obviously, there's a lot of people out there. There's sponsors who are paying for slots. You obviously have to balance that because
Yeah.
if you have a sponsor selling from the stage, that's terrible, and nobody likes it. It damages the show. But thankfully, most of the people who sponsor get that, and they try to do that in a way that's actually contributes to the material.
Yeah.
But then you've also got people like me who are speaking in all sorts of places. I'd like to think I'm always bringing something fresh.
Yeah, and there's obviously
What
like
do you look for?
yeah, I mean, there's obviously like internal chats where we talk about who's doing something interesting or whatever. But like, just reach out. Like, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? Like,
Yeah,
definitely reach out to us. We've got public links and submission forms available where you can get in touch through there and submit through. Obviously, we receive hundreds of applications, possibly even thousands, like
yeah.
each year for our events.
How do
Uh,
I put a thumb on the scale to make me more interesting to you. If you're an indie dev and you haven't got the history of speaking publicly, you've got that fear factor of I'm putting myself forward. Obviously, we don't want them to feel that. How do we make them feel like they can reach out to you
Yeah,
and what you need to see?
you need to make sure that you're clearly you've got a clear defined topic that you want to talk about,
Yeah,
why it will bring a value to the event as well. Some of the best applications we've seen have said like why this brings value to your attendees, and that makes us go, okay, that's interesting or whatever. And if there's like any sort of like profiling that you can share, like I know we just said as well, like about, especially on the indie side, they don't have the history compared to other developers that have been going for longer. But showing some sort of like profiling as well. Think of it as a bit of like a CV. You just got to basically big yourself up as much as you can, essentially,
yeah. I
like
think having an
show us
angle and a hook.
why value, like what, yeah, like
Yeah,
the each different. There's loads of different topics that people talk about all the time and want to talk
yeah,
about different things. How you present that topic and how you present that value, like why is this valuable for us? Like why is this valuable for our attendees? Why is that valuable? Like if you're in the audience, like what do you want to get out of this session?
yeah,
You've got to think about that level.
yeah. I mean, I remember I pitched having a team who were making a very very small Kickstarter to talk at one version event. And the reason we put them on was because it was a small team that had a very distinctive, diverse background with a game that had a very distinctive, diverse theme, and that they were students who had managed to achieve their Kickstarter.
Mhm.
And to my mind, that felt like a really interesting thing to say. Here are a group of people who the odds are against, and yet they've managed to work and deliver this experience,
Mhm.
and that worked, and I think was a really good topic, and it allowed us to have a representation on stage that we would not have otherwise necessarily had.
Mhm.
Equally, we've had situations where we've had fireside chats with people who have been some of the biggest names in the industry, and some of whom don't like speaking. I remember Debbie Bestwick when she did not like public speaking at all, and I managed to convince her to speak at some event. I don't think it was even a Pocket Gamer event. I can't remember what it was, but she very kindly agreed to speak, and I think she's cursed me ever since that point because everybody then said, "Oh, you can speak; it's all good." But it turns out she was really good,
Well, there you
and it was
go.
really interesting.
There you go.
And yeah, I think that's the thing is like not being afraid of it, being willing to think about. I think this is the thing for me. I first gave my first like serious, scary public talk to the Royal Society of Chemistry in about 91, maybe something like that. So I must have been 20, I don't know, 22, 24, 20, something like that. Anyway, I bear in mind I just effectively failed my A level chemistry. I got an N. I was supposed to get a B and I got an N. It was ridiculous. I just really screwed it up. And I'm going to talk to some of the world's top chemists, but they didn't know computers and I did.
Well, there you go.
So I had one thing I could talk about. I could talk about how we were going to take their data, if they let us have it, because we needed their data, and use it to write the recipes with the nutritional labeling needed. Because that was when it was just starting out. Yes, I'm that old. And so I managed to convince the Royal Society of Chemistry that not only was I an expert in all the things they knew, because everyone assumes that you know what they know, but I could teach them something they didn't know about how you would calculate the component ingredients based on their data. And at that moment, I lost any fear of public speaking. I think when you realize that the audience is there to listen to the thing that you know, that makes everything magic.
Yeah. I have a story about like how I overcame my public speaking as well. Like, I during the pandemics, lockdowns, and everything, one of the last ever sort of online events that we done, I said, "Oh, I'd love to do like a comparing or something like that, introducing the host or whatever to basically help out." I was very nervous at the time, but like it was online, so I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I did my first ever sort of live hosting in PGC London when we all started going back up in into live events again. And I remember going on stage, and that sort of first sort of bit of light that sort of shoots at you on stage. You're like, oh my god, I can't see anyone, and I just remember my heart going boom, 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 mouth going
Yeah.
all dry. I was like, oh my god, I better get everything right. But thankfully, I had prepared and everything. And then later on, because we weren't entirely completely 100% live. We were doing hybrid at the time, so people,
Yeah.
if they couldn't make it to the live event, speakers would jump on Zoom, and we basically got their face on the screen and everything. I remember there was one sponsored session someone had, and they had that session, and then they were going to stay on again afterwards and to have a fireside chat with someone after. The person that they were having um, join them for that fireside chat also was joining us remotely, but he didn't show up like until like for ages. So I had to improvise, ask our speaker that was there questions on stage, and you know, say, oh, we're going to take a little break or whatever. The guy finally showed up, and I was like, oh my god. And I was told that okay, we need to move on with the next session, so they've got 5 minutes to chat about them amongst themselves. And so I said that. I was like, okay, so thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we got like 5 minutes. We're gonna have to move on, like and everything. And then the sponsor was like, oh, I thought we had longer, like because we paid for it. And he said that live on stage, and I was like, well, rightfully so. Like he was well within his right to say that. But obviously, when you're the person that is on stage and managing that, and you've been told something, and then for the other, I just remember feeling so small. Like I
Yeah.
remember
Oh, and
going,
it's so disempowering.
because again, you're on stage, you're sort of looking out to like the people that you're
Yeah.
trying to liaise with to work it out, and the light is just so bright you can't see. You genuinely feel like a deer caught in headlights. And I remember getting, afterwards, I was like, oh my god, that was awful. That was awful. Like, the our sponsor might kick off at me or whatever like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and rightfully so. Like, um, but I after that, I was like, well, that was probably one of the worst things that could ever happen,
Yeah.
and I handled it. So,
Yeah.
and then ever since then, I've done the speaking stuff more. I've done the hosting. I've done the panel moderating and everything. And I started getting better and better and better at it, confident
Oh,
in
and your
myself.
confidence
Now
has
that
grown
I
tremendously.
can't shut up when I'm on stage now and when I'm moderating.
No,
Like
you've definitely you've grown in confidence ridiculously. It's really annoying because you don't need me as much now.
I always need you, Oscar. But yeah, like when just going back to what you said about for people that don't have the experience or whatever like that, how do they reach out to finally become speakers? You just put yourself out there, put yourself out of your comfort zone, reach
Yeah.
out to events like us or other events that you'd like to speak out, share whatever's interesting, make sure that whatever you're pitching is clearly defined, like how this will bring value to their attendees, and just get out there and just do it. Just 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 do it, as Nike would say.
Absolutely. Just do it. I'm going to tap into some really interesting things you were kind of saying there, for me anyway. So I think it's really fascinating that when you get situations where, say, for example, a sponsor pulls the sponsor card on you, the really fascinating thing is it's not you that looks bad. And actually, it's not in any interest of any sponsor to act like that either.
No, no. Like obviously, like he wasn't like obviously doing that on purpose or
No,
whatever.
no. And, yeah.
And like
And
we
it's a
ended up
risk.
chatting about it afterwards, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, all good." And like they were super helpful about that. But sometimes you do get hiccups that happen, and you sort
You
of
do.
adapt.
Hiccups happen. People are late. People don't turn up. The number of times I've actually given a talk on the topic that the person didn't turn up was supposed to talk about. I mean, I can do that because I've got ridiculous experience, but and also an ego to go with it. But that means that the people in the room don't feel like they've been, they've lost out. They came to hear about the thing.
Yeah,
They maybe
they
in the talk
yeah.
they were expecting from the person they're expecting, but I'm hoping most of the time I do that, the people in the room are getting something or on that
Yeah,
topic.
they're coming away with something, because one of the worst things that could happen is when you're running a room or whatever, and then you lose the
Yeah,
audience. Like,
yeah,
you need to keep them engaged, because again, it's making them feel like they've come away with something.
yeah,
They've spent their their money to come to the event. That you've got to provide that. Again, this happens as much as like on the organizer side.
yeah.
We've got to make sure that we're providing value for our attendees.
Exactly, and the host and the MC or the moderator. I think. I mean, you do this already as well, which is the it's our responsibility to hold the speaker accountable to the audience, but also to ensure that they are presented in the best possible light.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's often a difficult challenge, but I think everybody benefits when if you come to the session and you're able to respond with questions that focus on the person's needs, the speaker's needs to kind of what they want to communicate, but at the same time make sure that gives the audience something beneficial. I think that's really the tricky part to try and pull off.
100%.
So, Charlie, we talked about all sorts of things. We talked about what it's like trying to organize these things, what it's trying to moderate these things, what it's like to attend these things, what you want to get out of events and networking. And obviously we've got PGC London coming up. What's the one thing you'd like people to take away from this about where we go next? What events mean for people? What events they should go to next? What's happening with Pocket Gamer next?
Yeah, so Pocket Gamer, so obviously our first event happens in January. We've got some really interesting things cooking up for this event. Like we said, we've got loads of talks about investment, like how to find funding and investment for your studio. And obviously loads of talks around like publishing, like how do you find your publishing partner, should you self-publish, all those sort of questions. We've even got like a panel where the UK Video Games Council panel are doing an AMA style session, so people can learn like what it is
Yeah,
that they're doing and
and
how they can help.
I think that one is going to be super important because we are facing some really prescriptive regulations that already exist, like the Online Safety Act or the consultation that's been going on with the Digital Fairness Act in the EU. These are going to be incredibly impactful on developers, and they're aiming them at everybody, not just the big companies. So
No, yeah, it affects absolutely everybody, and that's why I'd say that panel is like really because really important, because it
yeah,
feels like this government, like, say what you want about them, obviously everyone has their flaws and everything, and I'm certainly a critic of a lot of things that they're doing, but they seem very engaged in the games industry and the opportunity of the UK games industry, which is why
yeah,
they've wanted to set up some sort of like council panel that is advising government on like strategies and where they go with their government policies. People, and rightfully so, because there hasn't been much since the announcement of it and what's going on. People don't know a lot about like what the council's for, and so
yeah,
the objective of that is to explore that. What is it for, and how they can help, you. But I will say the aim, when I was speaking to Nick Button Brown about it, because we were talking about this and we were talking about different ideas for London or whatever, and I was very much interested in learning more about this council. Um, that people sort of, yeah, they don't know fully, and they don't understand what it's for, and you know I think this is a really good opportunity to learn about it and how they can best serve
yeah,
the UK, obviously the UK video games industry, but it's not representative of the games industry. So that
yeah.
I do have to make a disclaimer there because that's fine. But there's loads of other stuff going on in the event as well, like people that are going to be wondering about like how they navigate the UA space. That is
Yeah.
very obviously with all these
Especially in
regulations. It's
mobile, but
it's
generally as well. I think why it's increasingly important generally. User acquisition
Well,
looks like, and
and it
all
is
this.
marketing as well. It's like
Yeah,
like that applies across the board and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got other sessions. Obviously, I know people won't be very much fans of AI and all that sort of stuff. But for those that are interested in learning more, we've got loads of AI stuff. We are also exploring the intersections again of like where film meets TV. Where games meets film, TV, and everything. A transmedia summit as well.
Exactly.
There, we've got loads of incredible speakers that you can find on our website, which like please do give them some love because they're the rock stars. And then for 2026, we will be going live with our sort of calendar of events, but I can assure you that we will be in San Francisco again. We will be in Dubai again. We will be in Barcelona. We will be in Shanghai. We will be back in Helsinki. We'll be back in Jordan again later next year, and then some more surprises to come, which
I
we're
heard a
very
rumor there
looking
were
forward
about
to
10
announcing.
events. 10 events every year is a huge increase
Yes,
for running things like this because it's
from 4 or 5 a year to 10, which
yeah,
obviously doing that scale, but like it just shows like
yeah,
how much love and support we get from speakers, sponsors, attendees in general. Like this
exactly.
is they're the reason why we can do this, and they're the reason why we can do so much of this. So if anything, it's your fault, guys. I'm just saying, but no, I'm kidding. No, we really appreciate it, and like
Yeah.
we're just here to serve the industry as best we can.
Cool. And I think, obviously I'm biased because I'm kind of part of the group, which I have to say. But also, I genuinely think it's one of those most important things. And if you are out there and you are thinking about what events to attend, for me, PGConnects is my top tier one, alongside GDC and alongside Gamescom. You can't always do all of them. But they're the kinds of events that I think are incredibly important to attend if you have the capacity to do it. But if you can't, there's always something alternative out there that you can find value. I think finding the right events for you, taking time to score them, to think about what can I do and what can I take time out for, where can I find the value, but importantly then how I act to ensure that I get that value and get the follow-up that goes from that. That's going to be a really important part of how you then really approach any of these events. Hopefully, we're giving you a taste of what it takes, and to give a face to Charlie, who's helping work out who gets the speaker slots and how we create the right agenda to make sure we get the right level of information that gives you value to sit and listen to people. But also at the same time, these events are as much about meeting and sharing and connecting with other developers. So for me, event like PGConnects is great, and I joke, but I consider it to be my birthday present because it's always around my birthday. But that's another subject. Charlie, thanks very much for taking the time out. If anyone wants to find out more information about you or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If we can get some sort of link or whatever like that going,
Sure, we'll
or
get a link in there. It's all good.
edited right here or something. I don't know. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, and there's also our website's PGConnects.com, and it should show all the different events that we've got coming up and everything. So yes, please do get in touch with us. Looking forward to hopefully meeting some of you at some of our upcoming events next year or some other events.
Exactly. Well, Charlie, thank you very much, and hopefully you've enjoyed that, found that useful, got insight from that. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you do on the various channels that we have available for the PG. This is GDLX, GD, the Game Dev
Got
Local.
PG on the mind. Podcast. That's what it
PG
is.
on the mind. For the GD Game Dev Local podcast. Don't forget, there's also a Discord out there, so you can carry on the conversation there. And we'll be back again next time with another podcast. And until then, we'll see you at some games conference somewhere along the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you.